Good evening, and thank you for inviting us to attend the school board meeting tonight. My name is Brady Koch, and I am the president of Student Council at Skyview Upper Elementary.
My name is Maren Wells, and I am the vice president of Student Council. At the start of each week, our amazing principal, Mrs. Gorla, leads us in the Skyview Pledge during morning announcements.
Here is Skyview's pledge. In this school, we believe that learning is a lifelong adventure. We believe in facing each day with minds open to knowledge and hearts filled with empathy. We believe in the freedom to wonder, to ask, to explore, to imagine, to create. We believe that success means doing our best, being our best, and feeling proud of our effort. We believe that every one of us has special talents, and that the talents of each of us help all of us.
The Skyview learning community is based on the 6 pillars of character counts. We demonstrate the 6 pillars of character: trustworthiness, fairness, citizenship, respect, responsibility, and caring in our daily activities. As student council representatives, the 6 pillars are embraced by each of us in all of our activities.
We are now going to provide you with a brief description of the pillars of character. We need your help. You are each being given one of the 7 letters in Skyview. When we announce the letter you are holding, please hold it out in front of you.
S is for super. Students are striving to be super trustworthy at Skyview. Trustworthy is being honest, telling the truth, keeping promises. Trustworthy people don't lie, cheat, or steal, and they stand up for their beliefs even when it is difficult to do so.
K is for kindness. Students show their kindness by being strong citizens. Citizenship is doing your share to make your community a better place for everyone. Good citizens are also good neighbors. They cooperate with others and obey laws and rules. They respect authority and protect the environment.
Y is for yes. Yes, we are respectful in school and out in the community. Respect is showing what others are valued and who they are for their character, not what they look like or what they have. It means never insulting or making fun of others who have different looks, ability, and race or religion. A respectful person is polite.
V is for volunteering. It is our responsibility to volunteer within our school and our community. Responsibility is doing what you are supposed to do. Responsible people think ahead, set reasonable goals, control their temper, and always do their best. They don't give up easily, and they don't blame others for their mistakes.
I is for inspiring. Our inspiring teachers and staff care for Skyview students as we care for them. Caring is being kind, helpful, and generous to everyone. Caring people are unselfish. They are considerate, and they think how conduct affects others and show how others feel. Caring people are charitable and forgiving, and they do what's good without expecting a reward.
E is for engage. We engage every day as we follow the rules, take turns, share, and listen to what others have to say. This is how we show fairness. Fairness is playing by the rules, taking turns, sharing, and listening to what others have to say. Fair people do not take advantage of others. They consider all sides before they decide, and they don't blame other people for something they did not do.
W is for we. We are a team. By working together, Skyview is a community that is truly pillarific.
These pillars of character will help us not only now, but throughout our life. This is what inspires us, and we're hoping this will inspire you. Thank you again for inviting us to be part of your meeting. Have a happy Thanksgiving and a wonderful night.
Join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll ask you the principal to come down.
Thank you for that, guys. The public is hereby advised of the audio and video recording of this meeting for the purposes of rebroadcasting. By way of announcements, an executive session of the board was held on November 21st, 2019 in the Farina Administration Building for the purpose of discussing matters of collective bargaining with Methacton Education Association. And an executive session of the board was held on November 25th, 2019 in the Farina Administration Building for the purposes of reviewing and discussing matters related to school security and safety. By way of attendance, we have all board members here this evening. For recognition of guests and scheduled speakers, I turn to Dr. Zerbe.
Thank you, Ms. President. This evening we have a number of guest speakers. But most importantly, we have staff recognition, and I have the pleasure of introducing our Skyview Upper Elementary School Principal, Ms. Melissa Gorla.
So I'm excited to recognize 5 of our staff members for their outstanding contributions to the district. First is Mrs. Janet O'Connor. Mrs. O'Connor is an instructional assistant on the 6th grade Team USA. Mrs. O'Connor works with students daily to help them with the routine of their school day and to help them to build positive academic habits. She demonstrates care in fulfilling all of her responsibilities, and she is a key member of Team USA. Mrs. O'Connor. I think right to that baby, and then you're going. Next is Mrs. Tony Jones. Mrs. Jones is an instructional assistant on the 5th grade Storm Chasers team. She is dedicated to helping students on the team. She is often complimented by families for the level of care she provides to students. She is a nurturer and works tirelessly to meet student needs. Mrs. Jones.
Congratulations. Thank you for all you do for our children.
Next is Mr. Ben Greenover. Mr. Greenover is transforming the Skyview Library into a collaborative space for students to engage in reading, learning valuable library and research skills, and creating in the makerspace. Students enjoy being in the library and engaging in learning centers. Mr. Greenover has created a welcoming environment where both students and staff want to be. He models collaboration with his special area colleagues, and we look forward to the collaborative projects between technology education and library in the coming year. Mr. Greenover. You really snuck by me. That's very sneaky.
Give her a shake. There you go.
I'm like, where did he go? Mrs. Kristen Brunn. Mrs. Brunn is a 5th grade ELA and social studies teacher on the STARS team. She demonstrates care and patience with her students. Her caring nature supports students in extending their learning. She's created a classroom environment that supports collaboration. Her most recent peer collaboration project involved implementing the use of interactive readers' notebooks in class. She continually seeks to plan for engaging instruction and is a valuable collaborator among her colleagues. and Mrs. Lori McCarthy. Mrs. McCarthy is a 6th grade math teacher on Team USA at Skyview. She works diligently to meet student instructional needs, and she's created a classroom environment where students can work on new skills and where students know that it's okay to not understand something or to be successful the first time, because she'll always be there to help. She collaborates with her colleagues both on her team and within the math department, and she cares about her students' well-being and demonstrates this in all she does in our school. Mrs. McCarthy.
And if you would please join us in allowing the board to recognize you. We'll start here and we'll go around and shake hands. Thank you so much.
Congratulations. 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 That's all you do.
Let's see the check. Everything's big paper and these small numbers.
I need like multiple pairs of printers just everywhere.
Not all of us have a hard time with this.
There goes Skyview.
I think we need to go on record as saying that the Skyview teachers are the most energetic bunch that we've had here, and yeah.
I request the woman in the back to come to every meeting. Thank you very much. And Brady and Marin, you solved a mystery for me. My son was going to run for student council, and one day he said to me, "I'm not running anymore," and he wouldn't tell me why. Now I know the competition was way too stiff. You guys are incredible. Happy Thanksgiving.
While folks are making their way out, I will ask the board if they'd be so kind to take the seats in the front row. We have Home and School President of the Methacton Coordinating Council here to have a presentation on Home and School. So Katie Scheinman, you want to join us at the podium?
I'm not going to say that. Do you think you need this for notes?
All right, it's a shy.
It's up to you.
I don't really.
It's up to you.
See, but wait, it's not on. Oh, here he comes.
Oh, there he is.
Want this?
Sorry. I connected it twice.
I know. We know.
It's deactivated.
Oh, did it go like to sleep?
Disconnected.
Oh, I don't think we need to dim the lights. It did work an hour ago.
Even less than an hour ago.
Yeah, like 30 minutes ago. We might just have to do without it.
That Skyview group is still carrying on. So as we're waiting for the projection to show up, just as a reminder, the board certainly recognizes the great work that the Home and Schools do across all of our schools in the district. And Katie happens to be the president of the coordinating council. As you know, a number of years ago, there was a 501c3 organization created to help support all the Home and Schools. And that organization is here this evening, Katie being their president, to share all the great things that all of our Home and Schools are doing across the district. So, Katie, thank you so much for being with us. And looks like we got the projection working, so I can stop talking and let you talk.
We worked a half hour ago. Thank you all. So we were approached this summer by Amanda Kelly, Home and School, to put together 4 presentations at school board meetings this year. And I have to say, actually, my vice president, Jess Fields, put this together, and she is in a long-term sub position and happens to have conferences tonight. And she's like, oh yeah, so that's why I'm here. So I'm not sure I'm gonna do her presentation justice, but I'll try. So for the first one, we picked how Home and School supports our community. So, if this works, look at that. All right, so community service through Home and School. First off is, how can you help? The basic need that we try to get across to everybody is just to volunteer. Go to your Home and School president, they can help you. Methacton.org has all the volunteer requirements on there. MCC actually held a volunteer social meet and greet evening, and we recruited a number of people and walked them through everything from their clearances to where they have to go to get a TB test. That's one of the biggest things, is we need all hands on deck. The second is, who are the benefactors? I mean, the major benefactor of all of the programs we run are the students in the schools, in every school across the district. And that's like our bottom line, is what can we do to help our students? Which programs should we offer in the future? This is where the community comes in. What do you want to see? We're always open to suggestions. What can we do to make things better? We're looking for partnerships, for insight, for suggestions, anything. All right, this is very self-explanatory. She even wrote for me no notes. She wrote me no talking notes. District-wide participation. There is huge post-prom support, both financially and volunteers. There are hundreds and hundreds of volunteers every year that come out to decorate, to serve food, to be here at 6 a.m. to clean up after post-prom. The Home and Schools all participate in a bus driver appreciation. It should be breakfast, not luncheon. Various teacher appreciation week activities in every building. Daily bread food pantry collections, district-wide, and all kinds of community programming. The elementary schools really hone in on these community things. There's the birthday bag bash, trunk or treat, bins with lids, students make items, first responder luncheons, a grand friends luncheon. Yearbooks are given to all the 4th graders, spring raffle for families in need. Every Home and School is a little different. This is just a little piece of what they do for the community. All right, middle school gets a little bit more. There's Toys for Tots. I have 2 middle schoolers, and we have all kinds of Toys for Tot donation emails right now. Helping Hands, the Veterans Chair of Honor, the Winning Warrior Program, donations at each grade level to support all kinds of activities, prom ticket purchases, self-defense classes, cash scholarships. There are so many ways that we try to support all the students within Methacton School District. That's the end. See how easy that was? I said 5 minutes. First peg. I said 5 minutes. 5. So if you need any information or you want anything from us or just have anything you can help us with, Methacton Coordinating Council at gmail.com will be the email I will answer and I will get back to, and we will work on it. Our real push this year community-wide is Daily Bread Food Pantry. They have a little bit of a partnership with us and we work with them, so that is where we've been focusing a lot of our effort. If you know of a community partnership or you are part of a business or a company, feel free to reach out and we will get the ball rolling. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know how to shut this off.
Ms. Shineman, I want to thank you for taking the time out to be with us this evening and sharing the thoughts of the home and school. And please know that from the administration to the teachers to our parents, the board, we all appreciate all the countless hours and efforts that every volunteer in our district through the home and schools puts forth to make our community and our schools a better place to be. So thank you so much, and I wish you and all of the home and school volunteers a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday.
Thank you. Same to you all.
So next on the agenda, we have two items. If you recall from the work session last week, we had SRE and Fadavia here talking about the Eagleville and the high school facade. We're going to start with the high school facade, if we could, Mr. Sakala. And in front of you, each of the board members, there is a handout representing some of the options that we narrowed down from last week's meeting. So as you recall, we had an issue with the facade in the front of the high school. It was determined that for the fact of safety that the facade would be removed and that it would be prepared in terms of insulation and for temperature and protection, and that later we would come up with some renderings. So these renderings represent the options that are before us. So there's actually two options. While there's 4 pictures, it's an option. It's the picture during the daytime and a picture in the evening. The first option is with the what's called the canopy option, and the second, if you go to the third picture, would be with the eyebrow option. And I'll let Mr. Sakala take it from here.
It's almost a mic drop. That was pretty much. That's pretty much of it. You have the photographs. We need to basically make a decision with direction-wise one way or the other. We're talking about aesthetics, talking about coverage. I think one piece of information that may have been a little off last time, the existing entrance protrudes a little bit from the face of the doors. There's like an overhang that's from the face of the current facade to the face of the doors. I think it was represented as 8 feet last time. I just recall that. It's actually 9 feet 4 inches. So, and we did accurately reflect that the eyebrow would extend an additional 18 inches beyond that, or the canopy would extend 5 feet beyond that. So that's the differential from a coverage standpoint. And I believe the other piece of information that was missing was cost. And after vetting the information with 2 vendors that do this work, the net differential, and again, just to sort of simplify the whole thing, if you want to go with the eyebrow, it's an add of $57,000. If you want to go, this is budget numbers, if you want to go with the canopy, we're looking at an add of $65,000. So it's 57 versus 65, and perhaps intuitively you would ask, why are they so close? Because a 5-foot canopy versus an 18-inch eyebrow seems like plus lighting seems like a material differential. But from what I understand, the canopies are actually prefabricated and delivered and reassembled at the site, whereas the eyebrows have to be field fabricated. So that's why the numbers are fairly tight. So I think that's all the information to give you. The only wrinkle I'll add to that is if you, you could always choose to spend a couple dollars more to design one of the options and include it as a bid alternate and see what that value comes in on bid day. But I'll be happy to answer any questions. I think that's pretty much it.
So let's take questions from the board. We'll start with my right here. Mr. Navarrete?
Yeah, no questions. I think looking at these renderings, I think we want to make sure that, my opinion is the canopy, obviously with cost difference, it certainly just looks better. Do we have any insight onto the lights that are shown in here are facing down from the roof? Do we have any update on that relative to township ordinances?
Yeah, so we made Fadavia and SRE aware that there may be some challenge with that. I don't know specifically whether or not the ordinance will or will not allow. My feeling is, based on what I know, is that it wouldn't allow it to shine down. But if we were to shoot light up, that would be allowed.
And that's obviously going to be a critical part of any of this design work, right? So we just need to clean that up in the next week. determine which way, I mean, we have to do something, right? We're going to have an unlit sign, so it's got to be lit in some manner.
Yeah, and if I may, I would just add, I think it would be prudent to bring in, like, the electrical engineer we're working with one of the other engineering firms. I think the lighting is kind of beyond SRE's discipline in terms of getting the right lighting that is code appropriate and does the right thing aesthetically.
Other comments or questions? Ms. Reese?
The panels, so this is in addition. The 67,000 is
Correct.
in addition.
Correct. So you have three options.
What is the total then? What is the total estimate of the?
I don't have the total from last time. I think we were
So
looking.
we could opt for a third option and have no canopy, no eyebrow.
Correct.
And leave it the way it is, except for it being
With the
repaired.
9'4" building overhang.
Other questions from members of the board to my right?
And this one is a little time sensitive because I know we're trying to get it designed, out to bid, and installed ASAP.
I will just add that we had said all along that the canopies were going to be part of the improvement for the egresses and the water and everything else, and that this is really just aesthetics. And the only reason we brought it up was because we had the facade that needed repair. So my vote is no canopy, no eyebrow.
My preference would be to bid out with the canopy option and with no canopy option. We can do that.
And make that decision on bid day.
Anyone to my left? Mr. Winters?
Yeah, Dan, just the flat surface and snow removal and ice and drip, how do these things generally, if we get an 18-inch snowfall, how do these things hold up? Are they slanted? Are they supposed to be draining? It just seems like it's just a flat roof right where everybody's walking on both the eyebrow and the canopy.
She's going to have to design something to take the moisture off it. You don't want it dripping on the front of it, so it'll be taken to the side somehow. But if you're asking about the integrity of the unit over time, is that the concern?
Yeah, the functionality.
It's the functionality. That shouldn't be an issue. I mean, it's pretty basic construction.
Paul, I'll add, when we discussed this in property regarding the other canopies that we were talking about, is that there's channeling systems kind of built in to the canopies to move it off to the side so that it drains.
The one thing I did like to see is that when you look at the lighting, I really do like the safety of the lighting, that it comes out to where if anyone were to be approaching, if it wasn't having any overhead, the lights, I assume, are only within that 9 foot that's within that pullout. When you do have that canopy, that safety lighting is a tremendous different look for it. But I do agree, I say we could bid out, but I don't think I'd want a $65,000 equipment.
Yes.
So just to confirm, what was there before was just the existing kind of door inset of like 9 feet some odd inches, correct?
4.
No canopy, no
9 feet,
eyebrow.
correct.
And then with respect to lighting, what was there before?
There's lighting there now, I believe. I think there's lighting there now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in the picture. It's like they're like square.
Okay, I got it. Yep, okay. So I'd have to agree with Ms. Reese on this one as far as just go back to as close to where it was before and not incur the cost and not deal with township on lighting issues, given past experiences. So I think I'd just go with as close to what it was.
I'm not smiling on that.
I don't blame you.
Ms. Drummond?
Can you Can you ballpark me what is the cost of this job so I can have a sense of what the additional canopy percentage-wise is a cost?
One's used 175 as a ballpark number,
175 without anything. Okay, thank you.
without a canopy.
Okay, then I think, so if we, I guess I would say I would be in favor of moving forward without a canopy or eyebrow then, but I'm curious as to what the plan is in general for lighting or is that
To
a separate
replace the plaster ceiling that's currently in the soffit and put new lighting in there.
Okay, so there would be new lighting in
In
where
that,
it
in
exists
that
now.
9'4"
Okay, where it
space.
exists now, okay. Okay. And how about lighting the, is that a separate issue to light them where it says Methacton High School? That's a separate issue with lighting that's separate?
I think we kind of left off, we were going to try and light that. I thought we were going to try and light that. I wouldn't let, don't worry.
Where it demonstrates the lights shining down onto Methacton High School, I think we need to determine whether or not that's allowable.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is if only uplighting is available, then maybe we do need that because that's where the uplights would live, on the eyebrow or canopy maybe, but I don't know.
I would think that might be, you're right, I mean, that's the best place for them. Otherwise, they'd have to sit somewhere above the windows themselves, and they would shoot up. So there'd be similar to the original construction, where there were two lights that would, on both sides of the three windows, would shine down. These would actually shine up. So it'd be, I'll call it canisters that would shine up.
Okay, so you can put lights where in other places it would. Okay.
I'm just going to clarify. That's what I would do. I know so far that the ordinance requires the lights to shine up on signs.
Okay.
Whether or not it can be shined up from a structure or has to be shined from the ground, there's a lot of nuances to the township ordinances. And I can tell you that, it's not something that I would normally do as part of my general business, and that's what we rely on Fidavia and the contractor to make that determination.
Okay, yeah, I think the additional costs for the aesthetics, especially since no one has said that this is an issue, like not having a canopy or an eyebrow is an issue at this particular entrance, I would say let's just do it to what it was before without those.
Ms. Aviles, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if we are looking at this purely as a matter of aesthetics, then I would agree that $65,000 for something that is just a matter of appearance is probably not a good use of our money. And even if there is channeling and things like that built in for, ice melt and things like that, it's still insignificant snowfall. There's issues with ice damming and things like that on roofs. Like, I can't imagine that this wouldn't invite more problems, even if it was designed accordingly. I don't know. I feel like we didn't have issues with water infiltration or anything like that at the entrance of the school previously. I don't see any reason that we have to modify it.
Mr. Bicker, were you able to locate what the original estimates were on the change for this facade?
Yeah, the number was about 141,000 was the max number that was thrown out with the meeting.
Okay, so from everything that I heard here this evening, unless there's any more comments, it sounds like we're kind of all over the place in terms of where we ought to go. So here's my recommendation. My recommendation is that we consider all three options, meaning an option with the canopy, an option with the eyebrow, and an option without, both, as part of alternates in the bidding process, whereby once the bids come in, the prices that are being reflected in the estimates may or may not come in as high or come in lower, and it may give us an opportunity on bid day to make this final determination. So if people don't think otherwise, I'd like to address the item for the high school 9H on the agenda to read as follows. it would say approve the SRE design concept entitled, and it'll be with the canopy as the primary, and the alternates will be an eyebrow, and the alternate would be without an eyebrow and a canopy. And before I go any much further, Mr. Sakala, is that appropriate?
Sure.
Okay, I thought I would chat with you. Okay. And then the amount not to exceed, and I imagine you said it was $65,000 for the canopy, so that's plus 141. What's the amount, Mr. Baker?
207.
All right, so
206, sorry.
That's just a budget construction number. You're not authorizing that now.
I understand. So we'll just make it 210, like that. So it'll read, approve SRE design concept entitled High School Facade with Canopy, with alternates for eyebrow and no canopy or eyebrow, as presented in the amount not to exceed $210,000 for the repair to the high school main entrance facade. And thereby, once the bids come in, the final decision on the proposal and/or the alternates are available for the board to make that final decision. Any further questions on the high school facade? If not, let's move on to the Eagleville facade.
Eagleville is a little more complicated. I'm going to ask on behalf of the team that we consider possibly changing direction a little bit from where we were last week. Last week we were looking at several options and pretty much came down to option B and D. The differential between the two was one separated the upper layer of metal panels with the lower level of brick in a straight line versus doing something in a more staggered pattern to maybe better balance out with the other side of the building. I did not get, actually I got them, but I didn't get them back until about an hour ago, the renderings to reflect. There was a request to have renderings to show the entire building so that detail could be better appreciated, whether the line or a staggered was a better effect. So you don't have that, but we talked about that. We talked about briefly canopies and what kind of a canopy, and I think we kind of dismissed that for the moment, but we talked about that. Talked about front entrance changes perhaps. The bigger issue that we talked about, or at least that it was mentioned, but the bigger issue are the louvers that currently are existing in the facade of the building for the mechanical system. The mechanical system is not scheduled to be addressed until 2021. The significance of that is, I think I can say confidently we've been good stewards of the district's money pretty much across the board on every aspect of everything we've touched, whether it's in the design stage, the investigative stage, or the construction, the bidding and construction stage. And the truth is we don't know for certain right now where we are with the mechanical system. It hasn't been fully studied. It's a two-pipe system versus the four that we have in this building. The four is a good system. We're going to keep the louvers in this building. We may or may not at Eagleville, depending on what that study, the fruits of that study produce. But in any case, if we wind up keeping them, the louvers are something that are specific to the mechanical system that's installed. We're not in a position to guess that system, that equipment 2 years from now. And again, trying to be concerned about not wasting money, not installing something that is premature. I also think it's relevant. We talk about this in property, but I think it would be helpful to briefly talk about Eagleville. It seems like we've been talking about Eagleville forever, and we have. So I just want to throw a few dates at you. When the feasibility, the FAS, the study, was completed in 2017, it did note that there were issues with water, moisture infiltration, and bugs. In November of 2017 was the first study. We actually deconstructed, you might remember, a couple of the lintels above the window to see what was going on. The other issue we had, you might recall, is that the window gasketing was not complete around the window, so there were gaps in the gasketing around the glass. In the summer of 2018, We had 2 projects that were completed. One was a roof leader project. There was a roof leader that was connected to the roof, in one of the roof drains. They run internal in the building, and then they connect to the distribution system. One of them was running through the building and just dumping into the earth. It was not connected, so that needed to be connected to the system. That was accomplished. In addition, we completely replaced all the window gasketing for all the windows on the building. So that was summer of 18. That took care of the windows and the roof concerns that were identified. The last piece was the Masonry Project, of course. And we awarded a contract to SRE in November of 2018. The intent there was to do some more evaluative work because all we did was a couple lintels, and then based on the findings of that study, we then to put together appropriate documents for the repair of the system as necessary. And again, the concern here primarily, as you all know, it's the left side of the building where you don't have the masonry backup like you do, the concrete block backup like you do on the right side of the building. We determined that the evaluation work wasn't sufficient to just take off 2 panels of masonry, but we were going to actually do probe work around the entire building, and that work was carried out in the summer of this summer. And the net effect of that, after all of that, was what was originally, a concern about some moisture and bug infiltration, and okay, now we've got issues with flashing, but it's become basically a replacement project. So the project has had a history, and again, I just want to come back. I know this. We have some concerns too. We try to do everything expeditiously, but you can waste a lot of money, throw a lot of money at a problem if you hastily try and address something. I believe the right thing was done across the board to surgically analyze things as we've gone along. And I think at the end of the day, that's where we are now. We realize we've got half a building that needs the surgical masonry repair, the right side, and we've got the left side that needs to be replaced. So the respectful recommendation is for your consideration. The other issue to throw on top of that is we've all been striving as a team to bring all of these projects, the 2020 projects, back to you for the February 10th property meeting. This one has been a tale that we were having trouble getting this one in. It looks like it's dragging about a month, the Eagleville project in its entirety. So respectfully asking if you might consider leaving the masonry repair project on for this 2020 work, and we could get that done in the timeline for the February 10 property meeting, so we can look at everything in mass, and letting the left side of the building, which is a facade replacement, properly allow it to have the time to resolve the entrance, the canopy, the whole louver and mechanical situation. So when that and put that off to next year, budget God willing, so that it's just we're just making the best use of your dollars.
Let's get some comments from members of the board. Mr. Navarrete?
Where to begin? I appreciate the timeline, Dan, but in reality, the investigatory work that you talked about slipped. It slipped from earlier time frames, and I think where we're at right now probably could have been avoided with the right planning ahead of time, because this was a project we were supposed to deal with this past summer, and now it's slipped to the next summer. Now we're looking at the next summer beyond that now. I'll be honest, where we're at right now, and even after having this discussion about the high school facade, I don't have a lot of faith in our ability to beat the timelines on these projects, specifically around Eagleville. And after discussion about the high school, I'm concerned about that now too. We had originally planned to have this Eagleville facade project, we decided in April or May, because we bid things so late last year, that we were going to bid this out and have it designed and ready to go in October this year for an award in November. And that was decided upon back in I think the April or May property committee meeting. We're supposed to have documents come back tonight, renderings, costs that we don't have. And let's just add to the fact that no one from the teachers to the administration to the board loves any of the design work that was done. I think it went over like a lead balloon. So I agree with you. I think our best option as a board right now is to stop work on this design on the left side. Let's save whatever remaining money we can on that contract. And let's redirect our resources to have Shepherd work on the repairs that need to be done on the right side of the building, the CMU section of the building. What I'd like to do then is have that come back to property in December. We have a meeting on the 9th, I think, where we can talk about exactly what needs to be done on that right side of the building, and then the timeline for what needs to happen to get the left side of the building taken care of appropriately. And that does two things. One, it allows us to, I think, do this right? We can complete the HVAC work, right? Because our work for right now, for the rest of the board, on a timeline perspective, from the HVAC perspective, we have the same engineering firm that came in and has done the initial survey work and the design work for the high school MEP project. They've done surveys across the other schools in our district right now in preparation for future work. Obviously, Eagleville was high on that list because of what we knew was coming with the facade. So that work was not supposed to be completed by this time, but obviously it ties in. We don't want to make changes to the building twice. It'll also allow us, we've talked about making entrance modifications to both Eagleville and Worcester for security reasons, to have the offices set up as they are at some of the other schools. It would allow us to address that issue at the same time and avoid having to do double work on that section of the building. I'm not pleased by any stretch with where we are right now, but given the timing, given the possible result that we'll take a $1.5 million project and turn it into $2.5 million because we're late to the table, I think the time is now to cut bait on this side of the building because we'll pay more in the end if we do it wrong timeline-wise now. So I'm open to any suggestions that the rest of the board has on this.
Ms. Reese?
I will just say that I think we have no choice but to just focus on the right for right now. And one of the reasons I asked to switch to property is because this is all very, very complicated. And it isn't a matter of choosing blue or green or tan. It's much, much more complicated than that. So all the exploring work we did was not a waste of time. It was not a waste of money. We had to make sure what we were fixing before we fixed it. So now that we know, maybe the timeline hasn't been great, but we were all worried last week about a straight line or a crooked line. It's much more complicated than that, and there's no way we can do this. And I spoke to Ralph, and I said, not to say I told you so, but at the property meeting, I made this suggestion that we probably need to hold off, and I don't blame him. He's like, no, we need to get this fixed, and I understood that. It's just not possible, not only because we have to do it right. Since it wasn't done right 15 years ago, it needs to be done right now. And in a perfect world, the timeline would have worked out. But the people that did the exploring work did a great job. Maybe they weren't the right people for the facade part. I don't know. It doesn't matter at this point. The bottom line is we can't make this done properly and efficiently because of the HVAC and knowing if we need louvers and all these things that were explained for hours at the property committee meeting. So I don't look at it as necessarily a failure or that negative. In a perfect world, yes, it would be done, but it's very complicated when you're working with the public's money and you're working with a bidding process. It's not like working in a private institution or in your home. So I'm going to stop there, but say I think we need to concentrate on the right side so we can do the left side properly, hopefully align it with, a little bit with Arrowhead and get it done properly. But I don't want to focus on the negative. I just want to get the right side completed and, like you said, get a complete timeline for fixing the left.
Thank you, Ms. Reese. Anyone else on my right? Mr. Ryan?
Yeah, I agree with much of what Mr. Navarrete said. I won't restate the whole thing, but again, I will stress that this continues to be one of our issues. This is, as Ralph said, not the first time. We set up a timeline. We think we're ahead of the game. We missed that timeline, and then we're struggling to catch up. Then we set a new timeline, moving things up a little bit to make it better for the next year, and we still fall short. We pretty much knew this was going to happen last week. We came to a meeting to discuss something, didn't even have all the proper information that we would need to have a decision 1 week later on what we're going to do. So moving forward, I think that these timelines have to be figured out better, and I don't know how you're going to, I mean, that's what we have you here for, right? It's the timelines to figure this out. And there's got to be something that we're doing different or to correct this moving forward.
Anyone else to my right? Ms. Hall?
I'll concur with what's been said so far. I think there was a lot of discussion about design, and I think for a project of this magnitude, we really need to take the time to make sure that the design is favorable to everyone, that it incorporates the changes, and we won't have to modify it again the following year for the HVAC. And it's something that we would be stuck with for 20-some years. So I think taking a step back and just altering the right side of the building is the right choice.
Thank you. To my left, Mr. Winters, Ms. Canquil, Mr. Renshaw.
Yeah, the plan to defer seems to make sense to me. My only question is there anything that needs to be done now as kind of a stopgap measure for the next 2 years to prevent any further damage, whether it's water infiltration or any other issues that might come up?
Yeah, I believe the holes that were cut, the probe holes, we'll need to protect those a little better. They're not meant, I believe, to be exposed to the elements for this kind of duration, so we'll need to revisit that. But order of magnitude, it should be a relatively small amount.
Can I add to that? I think one of the other things, and I know you and I talked about this one-on-one, and Mark's not here tonight, but we absolutely must have a plan from Mark's group as to, from facilities, excuse me, as to how we're going to deal with the issues in that side of the building. And it's both sides, quite frankly. I'm actually less concerned about water in this case, and I'm much more concerned about the insects and the bees that are coming into classrooms. We can't have, never mind the distraction, but children getting stung and having that worry day after day after day. If we've got to go out there and spray foam every weep closed on the outside of that building, that's what we've got to do. But we need to see a plan for Mark, and it's got to be done really in the springtime.
Agreed. Ms. Drummond?
I guess I'm glad to hear that we're talking about delaying this, because I did not understand last week when it was presented why looking at the metal panels, and we were told that we had to know the size of the louvers, but then we don't know the size of the louvers, and so I just didn't understand that. So this is good. But I guess I just have a question about, are there any other concerns regarding the integrity of that facade that's on the left side if we delay the replacement?
No.
Aside from if we fix the water and we take care of the bugs.
No, and from what I've heard, and again, it's all secondhand from James and Mark, but the bees and water infiltration has lessened since the gasketing was completed and the roof leader was fixed. So.
So I would agree that this plan is the most appropriate plan, but I guess I would fall short of calling it the best plan, because we are still dealing with kind of a lesser of multiple evils here. And I just wanted to echo the disappointment that Mr. Ryan and Mr. Navarrete have shared in the way that this has gone. I mean, the Eagleville facility has been pushed aside and pushed back on the schedule entirely too many times. And I reiterate what everyone else has said here already, but I look forward to hearing a comprehensive plan from our facilities team as to how this is going to proceed going forward. And I'd like us to hear very regular updates on that, if not at a regular board meeting, then at the very least at property. And I know Mr. Navarrete will see to that.
So with the feedback that we received tonight, my recommendation is, A, we need to be prepared for the December 9th Property Committee meeting to lay out a plan on how we will deal with the left side of Eagleville, as well as provide a plan for how we're going to deal with the insect infestation challenges this year through our facilities team. So with that said, the next thing that I want to just bring to the attention of the board is that the Eagleville agenda item was 9I. My recommendation is that there be no action taken on that particular item. meaning that when it comes, there'll be no motion. We take that as a separate item, both 9H and 9I, and when 9I comes up, if no one makes a motion to do that, it just dies without action. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right.
Okay, one more question.
Yes.
Dan, while you're still there. Do we have assurances that we'll be able to get the design work done? I know it's not nearly to the same scope as it was for the south end of the building, but will we be able to get the design work done for the north end of the building for the necessary repairs in time to have it bid out for us to vote on it in February with all the other projects?
Yeah, I believe so. We discussed it internally as a team, but then I also, before coming here tonight, spoke with Teresa personally about it, and she gave her commitment.
Okay, thank you.
I would just add, I'm very concerned about the concerns that you raised about schedule. I will get back to you on that, and happy Thanksgiving.
And it should also be known that there was an administrative oversight and on the agenda. I want to bring to your attention item 13D. As you recall, we brought before the Finance Committee this month, as well as before the work session last week, the presentation from Malley, our auditors, and that item was now added later this afternoon for your consideration. It is the expectation of the board and that it's general practice to accept the audit. As you recall, there's no findings, and the presentation and the work that the business office did are favorable to the district. So with that, that ends all the special guests.
All right, moving on now to reports. Mr. Earnshaw for our Finance Committee.
I was unable to attend this month's Finance Committee meeting, so I thank Mr. Navarrete for leading that meeting, and I thank him in advance for giving the report.
We missed you the last month. We shed a little tear for you. The Finance Committee met on November the 13th. All members except Mr. Earnshaw were there, as was Mr. Ed Furman from Malley to discuss the audit report. Under monthly financial reports, Mr. Bricker presented the usual list of bills, treasurer's report, budgetary transfers, and the expenditure and revenue reports, and he provided responses to questions from the committee received in advance of the meeting and during the meeting. Mr. Bricker also provided commentary relating to October's revenues and expenditures in comparison to budget for the period. The monthly healthcare consortium report was not available at the time of that meeting. Under discussion topics, Mr. Bricker presented a very high-level summary of the preliminary budget for next school year and some of the assumptions that were made in preparing it. The committee did provide clear direction to the administration that every effort should be made to limit any tax increase to or below the Act 1 index. Mr. Bricker also reviewed the different budget approval calendar required this year, which I believe we discussed last week because of the presidential primary election. Mr. Bricker also provided the committee with a high-level overview of the causes for the $1.8 million surplus and spoke to details within each category. A full detailed report is expected by the board. As previously mentioned, Mr. Furman was present to present the committee with the findings from the audit, where he issued a statement of no material findings. Regarding the per capita tax, I think we discussed that last week in depth about how to proceed with collections for the for any out-of-date taxes that were due. There were 2 periods provided for public comment. The first following Mr. Furman's presentation on the audit, during which time Mr. Bickelman and Dr. Malik commented, and during the second period at the end of the meeting, we heard from Paul Winters, Joe Bickelman, and Jim Malik. Again, the meeting was adjourned at 8:23 p.m.
And back to you again, Mr. Navarrete, for Property and Transportation.
All right. The Property and Transportation Committee met on November 11th. All committee members and administration members were in attendance. We also had with us from Fadavia, Mr. Sakala and Mr. Miller, and from Shepherd Restoration Engineers, Teresa Shepherd and Stephanie Valentine. Under property, regarding the 2018 master plan projects, The final corrective actions on the auditorium are nearing completion, and once done, only the contract credits to the district are left outstanding. Regarding the 2019 master plan work, all that work is completed, and there are also only paperwork issues left, including final change order credits. Regarding the 2020 master plan work, the committee had significant discussions on a number of topics, all of which we discussed in further detail last week and this week. The high school main entrance, Eagleville facade, the needs for commissioning services, and a master integrator for the high school MAP project. And we also received an update on the high school gymnasium, which we also got at our work session last week. Under transportation, Mr. Bricker updated the committee on several transportation matters, including the new first student router who started November 1st. The fact that driver recruitment continues to be an issue for first student and other school bus drivers, school bus transportation companies, and that a candidate had been identified for the transportation specialist position, which is on the agenda for tonight. The committee also discussed the continued reports of drivers running school buses flashing red lights. This has been a topic on social media and certainly in our emails. The committee did request additional information from the administration for consideration, which we did receive some information back, thank you, in our memos. It was also noted that Methacton School District would have to fund any modifications of first student buses for this purposes. The meeting then adjourned at 9:30 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Navarrete. And for the Education Committee, Ms. Reese?
We met on November 4th. All members were in attendance. Pupil services started with contingency funds. Applications are submitted for students who have eligible programming costs that exceed $75,000 or more. The maximum amount the district could receive is $150,000, regardless of the number of applications submitted. We have received the maximum amount the last 8 years. Any contingency funds awarded to the district will be received in May of 2020. Next up was school safety and security grants. They were, we applied for those, one of $45,000 to support the purchase of Stop the Bleed kits and associated training. In addition, the grant would support additional SAP training and the development of a Phase 1 trauma-informed plan and training for staff. Notification of any grant award funding will be sent in March of 2020. The district also applied for a competitive grant of $176,000 to possibly cover, with hopes to cover the first year of REACH if it was extended to the high school. The School Safety and Security Committee could receive, this committee receives over 800 grant applications, and there is about $33 million to award. So we are crossing our fingers on that one. So say a little Thanksgiving prayer. Gifted programming update. The Gifted Committee met on November 1st. They were broken up into two groups, a K-6 group and a 7-12 group. They reviewed the strengths and the weaknesses of our existing program, and they reviewed the gifted standards. Time was also given on November 5th to research several topics regarding gifted. And as a committee, we discussed the gifted survey that was given out. We also reviewed the whole child safe tenet, and there are 10 indicators that address both the safety of our schools and grounds and the being and feeling safe at school for our students. Curriculum and instruction, we reviewed the AP, SAT, and ACT results. 706 AP tests were taken. 95% of our students earned 3 or above. 73% earned 4 or above. There was an increase in SAT scores from 2018, and the ACT scores are above the national average. 12 students are semifinalists for National Merit Scholars. We also reviewed the extra duty contracts. There was a STEM update, and since the meeting, there has been a release of a new feature on our website describing the district's 4-pronged approach to growing STEM, including building a common language around STEM through a focus on the 4 C's, which are collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and creativity. STEM certification endorsement. Currently, 19 teachers, 17 this year and 2 previously, became certified and were celebrated on November 5th. Opportunities for teacher in the workplace, and we are hoping to build more courses specifically related to STEM. We reviewed the enrollment report. Several people spoke at courtesy of the floor. Joe Bickelman, and John Andrews continued their discussion and concern over Arrowhead and Arcola and capacity. Daniel Kane discussed her concerns with the gifted program. Jenny Geis is excited to hear about possible full-day kindergarten. Kit Markle discussed time for morning meeting that was suggested in the health tenet. Liz Santucci requested that the gifted teachers need more time to research and figure out the best approach. Joe Ferraro expressed his happiness with the gifted program. Mark and Kelly Skinner expressed their concerns over how we are going about reviewing the gifted program, and the meeting adjourned at 8:26.
Thank you, Ms. Reese. Now for policy, Ms. Hall.
The Policy Committee met on Wednesday, November 20th. The meeting was called to order at 6:31. In attendance were in attendance were Ms. Aubrey Larson-Ace, myself, Mr. Winters. Mr. Ryan was not in attendance due to an MCIU meeting. In attendance also were Dr. Zerbe, Dr. Katona, and Mrs. Montaigne. The committee moved 9 policies for first reading tonight as listed in the agenda. From the agenda, please note policy 140, charter schools, was suggested for review in 6 months due to current pending legislation. In old and new business, it was decided that policy 805.2, school security personnel, which was previously up for second reading, required changes due to terminology, and that policy was amended by Mrs. Montaigne and is now recommended for first reading tonight. So that brings the total to 10 for first reading. Also, a minor amendment was made to the attachment on policy 808, food services, regarding payment of school meal accounts and notification process of low balances. There was no public input during courtesy of the floor, and the meeting adjourned at 7:51 p.m.
No, I was asking if Montaigne was the solicitor. Sorry.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hull. And now for the intermediate unit, Mr. Ryan.
Thank you very much. The MCIU board met on November 20th. We had a relatively short meeting that evening. In regards to finance, there were 11 new and proposed budgets that were approved. In HR, 20 new hires were made, many replacements, and 2 retirements. For property work, they continue to work on both the main building and the 1605 Early Learning Academy. We did have to approve some change orders. They're incorporating a lot of the same stuff that we do. You open up an old building, you find new stuff, and you have to adjust your bid. So they're kind of dealing with some of the same stuff that we are. And the last item to note was we had an executive session that night, but it became public information the following day. Dr. George, the executive director of the MCIU, is retiring. He will be taking on a position with the Pennsylvania Association of Intermediate Units. His retirement will be effective in September 2020, and I imagine that my replacement at the IU will be giving you updates on the search for a new director. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan, and thank you for your service to the IU. North Montco, we have Ms. Drummond and Ms. Reese.
We met on November 18th. First up was celebrating our student of the month, Matthew Brown, who's a HVAC student. Next up, and you'll be hearing about this in the next year or two or for a while, enrollment is at an all-time high at the Tech Center, which is a great thing. It's something we want to see. But unfortunately, it causes issues that everybody get the seat that they want in the program and the class that they want. So Stephen Monastra, the new principal, started to review enrollment with us. And we had a somewhat lengthy discussion about how's the best way to make sure all the students can get the seats that they want. So you'll be hearing more about that. It's very, very complicated because there's 3 sessions at the Tech Center, 5 sending schools. It is really not it's not easy to schedule everybody. So they're working on the best way to do that, and they seem to have a good handle on it. There has been a steady increase over the last 4 years, and it's at an all-time high, like I said. And I can't speak for all, but a lot of times they're under-enrolled. So the fact that North Montco has this problem speaks very highly for our Tech Center. We retain 90% of our students, so 90% of the students that go to the Tech Center stay at the Tech Center. On a more positive, or I should say less serious note, there is Breakfast with Santa on December 14th. If no one's been, the breakfast is delicious, and the children can get their pictures taken with Santa. And there is the annual holiday dinner that I'm sure many of the board and administrators have received their invitation. So if you're able to go, it would be wonderful to see you there on December 16th, and then there will be a board meeting after for Liz and I.
Thank you, Ms. Reese. And now our student board representatives, Claire and Serena.
So at the high school, the first marking period ended on November 5th, and the second marking period began on November 6th, with report cards issued on November 14th. The Methacton Theater held showings of their fall play, The Crucible, from November 14th to 16th. On November 15th, the Habitat for Humanity Club held a trivia night, and the Student Council has been holding a food drive throughout the month of November, collecting a total of 1,600 food items, and the post-prom logo was chosen from student-made designs.
The Kids Against Crisis Club held a Dine and Donate tonight from 4 to 6 at Elevation Burger. The Science Research Team will be holding a Dine and Donate at Giuseppe's. The semi-dance, which is for freshmen and sophomores, was announced. Senior athletes are signing, and they're signing to some great schools like Villanova, Colgate, and Coastal Carolina. Winter sports such as winter track, swim, basketball, and wrestling are starting as the fall sports end. And Helping Paws is creating a pet calendar where you can submit your pet for a chance for them to be in the calendar, and the voting ends tomorrow night, and there's a survey being put out on the different classes' Google Classrooms, and you can vote for the 12 pets you think should be in the calendar, and then they're going to sell them, and the proceeds go to the ASPCA.
Thank you. Now for the Education Foundation, Mr. Beam.
Thank you. Well, the last several months have been very active here, not only for the entire school district, but certainly for the Education Foundation. Many of you have participated in some of the activities, including the Apex Awards dinner, which we had in October, which was pretty much a smashing success. What it did, and this is something that we've all talked about, is it raised substantially the foundation's impact in the community. And we have gotten more favorable publicity and feedback from businesses and individuals throughout the community, which is priceless. We've gotten statements of support. We've already received additional financial support, specifically from businesses, and I'm very encouraged about the direction in which things are going. And it's all thanks to all of you. This is a partnership. You've heard me say this many times, but it is a partnership among all of us, community members, faculty, students, administrators, and the school board. And so this week is Thanksgiving, and so we all should be thankful for what we have individually as families and as a school district. And I'm especially thankful for so many things. I am thankful for the community who is showing increased support and awareness and involvement and participation. And as was mentioned earlier, with more volunteers coming to the fore in various ways to help out. That's what makes the district more vibrant and more active and more effective. I'm very thankful for all of you. I'm thankful for the not only your participation in activities, but all your financial support. The foundation, many of you know that our executive director, Nikki Krelovich, suffered a concussion at the beginning of the fall, and she is recovering. But as I've learned, and many of us have learned, it's a difficult process. It's one that's taken a lot more time than some of us thought. Thankfully, I think she is going to recover fully. She's well on her way. You will see her next week at your meeting, and that will be a good thing. But it calls to mind the fact that we need to have more people involved, more people generating the activity, which allows us to raise more money and help more students, which is what all of us are all about. The last thing I just want to say tonight is that this is the last meeting for Mr. Ryan and Mr. Earnshaw. And I want you to know, as a point of personal privilege, that I've very much appreciated what both of you have done, the contributions which you have made to this board. You both will be missed. Thank you very much for your service, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Mr. Beam. For communications, Ms. Kelly.
Excuse me, I'm trying to get over a cold, so forgive me, I have holes in my cheek. So good evening. There are a few items that I would like to share from the Communications Department tonight. In case you missed it last week, I invite you all to take a moment to view the latest installment of our video series showcasing the pride of Methacton on the district's website. November's featured video takes a look inside the math program at Methacton and the ways our teachers engage and provide support for our students' understanding of this very important subject. The holiday season is upon us, which means our Methacton schools begin a very busy season of showcasing the arts. Next month, all of our schools will be hosting their winter concerts, so please check the district's calendar for specific dates and times. Worcester Elementary is preparing to celebrate a milestone next week. The school will host its 20th anniversary assembly on Tuesday, December 3rd, to recognize the year this current Worcester school building opened its doors. And at this time, I would like to ask Mr. Ryan and Mr. Earnshaw to stand for a moment. Tonight is their final meeting as members of the Methacton Board of School Directors. Mr. Ryan began his service to the district in 2015 and Mr. Earnshaw in 2017. So can we please give them a hand to thank them for their service and all they've done to benefit the students and staff of the Methacton School District. Tonight, with the help of Madam Board President and Dr. Zerby, we'd like to present Mr. Ryan and Mr. Earnshaw with a certificate of appreciation for their commitment and dedicated leadership in public education and outstanding service to the Methacton School District. Come on down. Yeah. And finally, happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Now for our superintendent's report, Dr. Zerby.
I have nothing other than those items that are listed on for the trip advisement and the personnel advisements.
All right, thank you. At this time, we will take public comment on board action items. This is an opportunity for residents to comment on matters to be decided upon as outlined on the agenda. Dr. Malik?
Jim Malik, Worcester. Getting to payment of the bills, can anybody up there tell me what we paid Sweet Stevens $14,258 for, or what the invoice is for exactly, for Right to Know. What exactly was done for 14 grand? Anybody have any idea? Because the reason I'm bringing this up is your Right to Know process is an absolute disaster. It's a disaster. I'll give you an example. I just handed you this document. This is an invoice that they produced to one of my requests. Can anybody tell me by looking at all this black what was done in this invoice? I'll even show it to the camera. I mean, you can't miss it. That's what I got. I can't tell anything from that invoice. So what I was forced to do was appeal the decision to the Office of Open Records. So if you turn the page, this is what the Office of Open Records said I should have got. Okay? Now, there's a stark difference between the second page and the first page. And the reason I knew I wasn't going to have a problem with this is it's based on Supreme Court case law. It's not like it's something nobody knows about. Apparently your solicitor doesn't know about it, though. Which brings me to other problems with the Right to Know process. You guys have 2 lawyers and a paralegal evaluating every request. Do you know how much money that is for each request? You don't answer questions at public meetings. You don't answer questions in writing. So where is a member of the public supposed to go to get information? I mean, some people even took attachments off of agendas for committee meetings that were normally there. All these things you do are resulting in a huge disaster of a Right to Know process. That's $160,000 you could be using for kids like Mr. Beam is, getting for the kids. It's 160 grand. I'm not sure I understand what the problem is, but I told you guys way back when not to get rid of Frank Bartle. I said, don't get rid of Frank. He's the best. And Kyle used to be in his firm. Kyle knows what I'm saying. Frank's one of the best Right to Know people in the state, but you got rid of him. Now I think it's time you start looking for somebody else, lawyer-wise, to manage your Right to Know process.
Let's keep it on to public, or on action items.
Yeah, well, the action item is you spending 14 grand. I'm going to tell you right now, don't spend it. Don't pay it. Don't cut a check. For all the reasons I just said, so that's how it's relevant. The contracts, finally get 2 contracts. One for Mr. Bricker, one for the security people. How do you guys make that determination? We get 2, you guys actually have 2 contracts to look at tonight when you vote on them. But you got a $1.8 million KCBA contract that you didn't get. How does that work? Can you tell me? I don't have a clue what you guys are doing. I don't think you have a clue what you're doing. That's my opinion. Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, Mr. Bickelman.
Joe Bickelman from Audubon. A week ago, last Tuesday, I came to the board and I asked a question about item 9G, the establishment of a philanthropy club at Arcola Intermediate School. I wanted to know what the mission statement of the philanthropy club is, what the kids are going to be doing, what they're going to be deciding on. I understand it's contingent on an $8,000 grant from the foundation. The grant that the foundation receives comes from the Phoenixville Hospital and is passed through the foundation, and it goes to the kids' activity fund at Arcola Intermediate School. I don't know why it just doesn't go from Phoenixville to the kids, but that's another issue. Also, there's $2,400 being paid to teacher sponsors. Of that $8,000, $2,400 is being paid to the teacher sponsor, which is a new position. There's also $500 in benefits associated with that $2,400 in Social Security contribution by the district and retirement contribution by the district. So that makes the total $2,900 just in salary and benefits to sponsor the club. That's 36% of the $8,000. But I would really like to know, where are the disbursements intended to go? And the kids will be the president, the vice president, the secretary, and the treasurer of the club should be established along with a mission statement for this club. And I just want to know where that $8,000 is planned to go, what their budget is for the club. You know, the kids get to learn a lot of things about process, government process, voting, keeping minutes and things like that when they run these clubs under the supervision of a sponsor that's getting paid $2,400. In this case, it's two sponsors splitting the $2,400, plus the salary and benefits of $500. So I'd like to know what the mission is of that club. I'm sure you had a week to look it up, ask the questions, and get an answer for me, because I really don't know what it is. I saw you put a not to exceed on the high school project. Is that just for the design, or that's for the actual work, right? The not to exceed number? That's for the workers to come out and do that? So now your budget is out there in the public, right? Hopefully that number wasn't inflated. So, you know, that seems strange before the bids actually go out to have that number out there. I think it was $200 and some thousand. I'd like to congratulate item 10A, Mr. Bricker, getting your new 5-year contract. You've been a real asset to the district in your short time here, learning the school business, getting into the account code structure that didn't exist here, that provided accounting controls. Also, the budgetary controls, you found some items, one item for $300,000 that was budgeted twice for the same expense. That's just a big item that you found. But to split up electricity, you had one electricity account code in this district. You split it up into the buildings, okay? You probably had this one account for sewage and water and things like that. So you split it up into the buildings where you can track these expenditures. You're doing a great job, and congratulations on your new 5-year contract. The Eagleville item, me and my other two colleagues that come to every meeting, we were here when the windows leaked. We asked how many windows leaked. Never got an answer. Okay, the bugs, people getting stung. Do they come in the front door? Are they on a kid's clothes when they come in from playground? It seems to me that, you know, there was some, you know, rubber trim gaskets. I didn't know how many windows, but we fixed all of them. So it seems to me that you should have a regular exterminator in looking at these things for the bugs, and you know, and take care of it that way. So that's my opinion on those items.
Thank you, Mr. Bickelman.
Hope to get some answers on the club.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Andrews?
John Andrews, Lower Providence. Relative to Mr. Bricker's contract, I wholeheartedly hope you will vote in favor of that. He's a valuable asset. I support Dr. Malick's concerns about the right to know legal fees. For this 1 month, $14,258. And I can certainly describe to you, if you're interested, difficulties that I'm having with right-to-know requests this year that were routinely approved in past years, or alternately at one occasion, the superintendent saying a document didn't exist, and after appeal and an affidavit, I got the requested items. And with regard to the Eagleville left side, as it's described, I think that one approach that hasn't been addressed is some kind of buttressing of the wall. I don't know what level of concern there is, what level of engineering risk is associated with with the wall not being properly secured. But I also have concerns with that wall in regard to the louvers possibly being unneeded because of a subsequent HVAC improvement at the building, and then also with regard to the entryway, our superintendent has talked about in a year or two addressing the security issues at the front door and bumping the building out, in effect undoing some of the contemplated improvements. It doesn't seem well organized relative to future HVAC concerns and future expansion concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Anyone else with public comment on board action items? All right, moving along. May I have a motion to approve the board meeting minutes for the work session held on October 15th, 2019, and the regular board meeting held October 22nd, 2019 as attached? Mr. Navarrete, and a second. Mr. Earnshaw, any comments from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay, the motion carries 9-0. Fiscal items, Mr. Berger.
Thank you, Madam President. Tonight for your approval, we have the list of bills, treasurer's report, budgetary transfer, 2 items under the school security services, 2 items under the 2020 master plan projects, a motion for the per capita tax, and a student club and an activity account for the philanthropy club.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve? Actually,
I'm sorry, so the high school main entrance facade repair.
okay. All right, so I think we're going to have to take several of these items separately. So may I have a motion to approve fiscal items A through C as presented? Mr. Earnshaw, and a second. Ms. Reese, any comments from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries. May I have a motion to approve? Well, I don't think we're going to be able to go through D through G all at once. I'm assuming people are going to want to take some of these items separately. Anyone want to take any items D through G separately? Mr. Earnshaw, I knew I could count on you.
Items G and H.
Okay, so then let's take a motion to approve items D, E, and F. Ms. Reese, and a second. Mr. Earnshaw, any comments from the board on those 3 items? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that motion carries. May I have a motion to approve item G, the student club and activity account? Ms. Drummond, and a second. Ms. Cancro, any comments from the board? Mr. Earnshaw?
Yeah, just if there's any information about the questions we heard from Mr. Bickelman regarding the purpose of the mission of the club, and I think another question was whether any other fundraising is going to be undertaken by this club, because it is a concern that, you know, north of 30% of the funds coming in would go to fund the sponsors. It really leaves not too much for whatever the mission of the club is.
As it was discussed at the work session, this formation of the club is at the tail end of our, we'll call it the club correction process that had started more than a year ago. And this recommendation is a result of ensuring that under the rules associated with our collective bargaining agreements, as well as under the rules of the funds that are being distributed, produce an opportunity for students to find leadership opportunities here at Arcola through this philanthropy program, which is designed to do research and to produce a recommendation from the student officers and the club to donate the remaining funds to a worthy cause, picked by the student body.
Okay, so essentially, the purpose of the club is to investigate and find worthy charities or other organizations needing of assistance to which to donate cash. Okay. Is there any other club currently in existence where these activities could be folded into that may have existing sponsors? So that...
At Arcola?
Yes.
I'm not aware of any club of similar nature.
It's just that there's about 3,000 of the aid is going to go towards non-philanthropic activities.
I recognize that.
And I believe that it's a contractual obligation, right? I mean, we don't have a choice to not pay the sponsors, so I understand where you're coming from, and it stinks.
Our choices are this: we fund this under the mechanism so provided to you here in this motion, or we make a waiver to the point allocations that have been established under the budget process for Arcola to bring additional points under the obligation payment of the district. Those are our choices. Or we don't run the club at all. And we suggest to the Education Foundation that they deny the acceptance of the grant from the Phoenixville. Those are
I'm not
options.
suggesting that. I'm
No,
suggesting.
I know.
My question was, is there another club that could undertake this on without adding cost? And it sounds like the answer is no. It's been
Not at Arcola. There certainly are service clubs at the high school where it would likely fit in and be rather appropriate. But at Arcola, we have less clubs, less sponsors, and this is, as I tried to articulate at the work session, this club technically has existed in a different format. And we're just correcting this.
Is there any, to the question of planning, the club with plans to do any additional fundraising? Do you know if that's?
I'm not aware of any additional fundraising that they plan to do or that they have done in the past.
Okay. Any other comments on this item? Okay. All those in favor? Motion carries 9-0. Now, I'll take a motion to approve item H, to approve SRE design concept. And this will be for the high school facade with canopy as the primary, with alternates to include the eyebrow and an alternate with neither the eyebrow or the canopy, in an amount not to exceed $210,000. Ms. Reese, and a second. Mr. Navarrete, comments from the board? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries 8-1 with Mr. Earnshaw opposed. So because it's on the agenda, I will read it, but I believe we did have conversation about this earlier. Can I skip over this, or?
Sure, if there's no, you can read what the agenda states, but if there's no motion, you could move on with the agenda.
Okay, so may I have a motion to approve item I, which is the SRE design concept for Eagleville Elementary? Okay, seeing none, we will move on. Personnel items, Mr. Regina.
Good evening. There's a number of items for the board's approval this evening. Item is employment contract of Mr. Bricker for the Director of Business Services for a term of 5 years, beginning July 1st, 2020, with the attached employment agreement therein. We have one classified resignation for retirement. Two additional items that we had from last agenda. We have an establishment of a classified position. This establishment also coincides with the elimination of the classified position that comes after it. What this does is it puts our counseling secretaries all at a 12-month position. So this is the last of those to be at a 12-month, and then eliminating the 11-month is the proper procedure in order to do that. For the next item, we have 4 employment classified positions. We have 3 professional uncompensated leaves, 2 classified uncompensated leaves, 1 sabbatical leave, 15 supplemental contracts, a few items on that one. So the Act 48 Committee, I want to speak to that right off the bat. You are missing an attachment in the agenda that comes with the Act 48 Committee, and the number also needs to be adjusted, so that's going to need to be amended. So the correct number is $1,260. This is for 6 hours, 7 individuals for 6 hours apiece at the contractual rate of $30 per hour. The compensation is for $180 for each individual, and the individuals are Heather DiPiano, Jenny Geis, Na Park, Colleen Clayton, Stephanie Sawyer, Jill Nickerson, and Irene Dobbs. My apologies for missing the attachment. There's the mentors adjusted prorated amount, so you'll see a difference in that amount. Last week it was $4,655.50. That is adjusted due to some of our employees departing from the district, and our mentors needed to be prorated accordingly. We have an additional indoor color guard hire, a classroom move that was submitted, and nursing services at the homecoming dance. We have a volunteer list addition and 3 community education additions.
It should be noted for the board on the agenda, if we look at item as it's listed 10E, it says elimination of position. It reads pending approval of item C1. It should read pending the approval of item D1.
Okay, so does anyone want to take any of these personnel items separately? Mr. Earnshaw?
Yes, items G4 and a number of items within N, as you could guess.
All right, so we'll take G and N separately. Mr. Winters? Okay. Anyone else? All right, so then we'll start with a motion to approve personnel items A through F as corrected, not just as posted, so to include that item D1. So the motion, Mr. Ryan, and a second from Ms. Reese. Comments from the board? Mr. Winters?
I have no problem supporting this, but obviously if it comes with a cost, is there an estimation on the cost?
For the adjustment to the counseling position?
Yeah.
Mr. Winters. There is, but I don't want to be able to speak to also that individual was coming in 40 hours during the month of July also, so I'd have to look at the contract that we were having that person come in. So they were doing 11 months, but then coming in an additional 40 hours throughout the month of July. So there would be a bit of an offset there that I don't have with me.
Any other comments or questions on these items? Okay. All those in favor? The motion carries. May I have a motion to approve items listed under G? Ms. Reese, and a second. Ms. Drummond?
Could we, I'm sorry, I just had a concern with item G4.
Okay, so you want to take, I'm sorry, then I don't think that I accepted I can correct it then. All right, so then we'll take a motion to approve items G1, 2, and 3. Mr. Earnshaw, and a second, Ms. Drummond. So all those in favor of items G1 through 3? The motion carries. And so now I'll take a motion to approve item G4. Ms. Reese, and a second, Ms. Hull. Comments from the board. Mr. Earnshaw.
Just a couple of questions. This position is listed as full-time, but when I went back and looked at the job description, it seems like a lot of the responsibilities, the essential job functions, really only apply when school is in a session. So I'm wondering if we get an explanation about what happens when school is out for the summer with this position.
So during the summer months where school is technically out, there's still transportation issues that need to be done with ESY as well as Jumpstart. In addition, that's when the routing starts. I'm hoping to not be a part of that this coming year, and that this position will take over those functions with regards to the reporting, the oversight, the management, and checking that the first students' routes are effective.
I did see that routing was part of that, so, and I believe the person that is on the agenda to be hired for this position used to work and do the routing for a first student. So is there any opportunity to amend the routing contract with first student?
This person's not going to be doing the actual day-to-day routing. They're going to have oversight. Because first student does routing, I sign off on every change that the routing is done to make sure that it's appropriate for the school district, that the families are taken care of, that the cost makes sense. There's also oversight with regards to the new routes, to outsourcing the routes to third parties that first student can't run. So it's not routing as far as the day-to-day operations, it's the overall site of that. It's not affecting that. And the contract we currently have with first student was reduced from $60,000 to $45,000 already in the recent contract negotiations.
And then the last question is, I went back and looked at the job description for the accounting specialist, and there does appear to be some overlap. And there's three main areas: the oversight and verification of transportation schedules and routing, and this is from the accounting specialist job description. Serves as a direct point of contact for transportation services and responsible for annual district and state transportation reports. And I see very similar, if not the same items, in the transportation specialist job description.
So the first two items are items that pertain to the invoicing and billing. That comes between first student. I'm sure if you ever saw the invoices, they're about 4 inches thick. And that would also go with the third-party invoicing and the transportation oversight with them. There's a lot of validation and checking when the invoices come, then it's done. The last one, a state report, was actually going to be done by this accounting specialist, but this position is much more better with it. It's something that comes out of the Boss software. It's something that the person will be more familiar with, and that's one function that I've been removing from the accounting specialist and putting with the transportation specialist. The accounting position to the transportation specialist.
Any other comments on this item? All right, all those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries 8-1 with Mr. Earnshaw opposed. May I have a motion to approve personnel items H through M as presented? Ms. Reese, and a second. Mr. Earnshaw, comments from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries. May I have a motion to approve item N under personnel? Did you want to take a specific?
Specific items I'd like to carve out if you could.
Okay, so
4 through 6, 8, 11, 14, 15.
4 through 6, 8, 11, 14, 15?
Correct. Thank you.
Okay. So let's do a motion to approve. You're really going to make me work tonight, Brian. Supplemental contracts 1, 2, 3, 7, 9, 10, 12, and 13. Ms. Reese, and a second, Ms. Hall. Any comments on those supplemental contracts? Mr. Winters.
Yeah, so Shay, the only question I have, and I appreciate you mentioning the names. I know on my time of that, 48, those that participate from the staff are very dedicated, but attendance was not always complete. I assume that these are dependent on attendance and not a carte blanche payment.
That is correct, yes.
Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries. Mr. Earnshaw, should we take each of these individually then?
You may group them.
Okay, thank you. May I have a motion?
I'm sorry. We didn't actually, did we adjust number 13, by the way, based on Shay's? We did.
Okay. So I'll take a motion now to approve items Under supplemental contracts, items 4, 5, 6, 8, 11, 14, and 15. Ms. Reese, and a second. Ms. Drummond, any comments from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 8-1 with Mr. Earnshaw opposed. And now I'll take a motion to approve items O through Q under personnel. Ms. Reese, second. Ms. Drummond, any comments from the board?
It's not really a comment on these items, but before we leave Human Resources, I wanted to ask you for an update on the German position and the English language learner position.
Yes, so both positions are posted. We have one candidate for the German position, and the closing of the ELD position will be this week. Right now, I believe we have 2, but I haven't checked it today.
Thank you.
Any comments on items O through Q? I'm sorry, Mr. Earnshaw, were you raising your hand? You had a comment? Okay, I just saw something out of the corner of my eye. All right, all those in favor? Opposed? Oh, I'm sorry, you had your hand up late. Motion carries 9-0. Looks like under curriculum and programs, Dr. Catona gets the night off tonight. And on to policy.
On the agenda for your approval this evening are 11 second reading policies as listed.
All right, may I have a motion to approve all 11 second read policies as presented? Mr. Earnshaw, and a second, Ms. Drummond. Any comments from the board? All those in favor? Motion carries. Gifts and donations, Dr. Zerbe.
Please accept a gift or a donation from Chadwick's Restaurant and the Foundation at Shenandoah to be used for the girls' basketball team, a donation of $1,000. Second, accept the donation from XSITE LLC to be used to support the Methacton High School Robotics Club, donation amount $500. Also under other trips, and there's a number of them listed there, a total of 11. And in addition, under other, we have settlement agreements as listed to approve the settlement agreement and a release for student 280105 with special language in terms of the settlement agreement approved by the district solicitor. And item 2, approve the settlement agreement and release for student 121212 with special language in terms of the settlement agreement approved by the district solicitor. And as I mentioned earlier this evening, the addition of the 2018-19 audit report to accept the June 30th, 2019 financial statements and single audit report as presented by Malley CPAs and reviewed by the Finance Committee of the Board.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone want to take any of the items under other separately? Mr. Earnshaw?
13C.
Okay, so then I'll take a motion to approve the gifts and donations and trips as posted. Ms. Reese, and a second. Ms. Drummond, comments from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries. May I have a motion to approve the settlement agreements as posted? Ms. Reese, and a second. Mr. Winters, any comments from the board on these items? Mr. Navarrete?
Yeah, Kim, just my connection was bad when we discussed these at executive session, and I have the full readout in front of me, so I'm going to abstain from these.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? And abstaining? So if my math is right, that would be 7 with Mr. Earnshaw opposed and Mr. Navarrete abstaining, and the motion carries. And now finally, may I have a motion to accept the financial statements and audit report? Mr. Earnshaw, and a second. Ms. Drummond, comments from the board? Mr. Ryan?
Just want to make one real quick comment. As we're moving forward at the Finance Committee, I do recommend actually going through this report, especially some of the footnotes, and specifically page 63. There is a lot of good detail. Sometimes we kind of glance over this and just accept it and then have Tim kind of come up with his own reports and stuff, but there's a lot of good information in there. And it also does help you track the budgetary transfers throughout the year, so some guidance for the Finance Committee moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor? Motion carries 9-0. Now we have dates for board members' calendars. We have our reorganization meeting next week on December 2nd. We have property and transportation meeting on December 9th, and that will close out the calendar for us. We will be announcing all of our meetings for 2020 at the beginning of the year once we have our new board members sworn in next week and we establish committee chairs. We'll be able to solidify our dates and post those accordingly. Do we have anything under under old business this evening?
Just quickly, I just want to thank Mr. Earnshaw and Mr. Ryan, and I'm not going to say too much because they will be sorely missed. We are at our trainings, we are told to do our homework. And these two gentlemen do their homework like none other. Thank you.
I swore I was getting through this tonight without crying. Is there anything else under old business?
Yeah, I'm not going to cry, but I hope at least. No, I want to, Andrea says it perfectly. The district has been served so well from the dedication of both Mr. Earnshaw and Mr. Ryan, and making sure they're doing the right thing for the district, to the students, for the financial responsibilities to the district. And they're prototypical board members, and they will be greatly missed, especially on the finance side. Thank you.
Anything else under old business? Mr. Ryan?
So I hope no one minds. I have about a 5-page speech to make. No, just kidding. I will leave a very simple message just to say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to serve. These last 4 years have been amazing, and I hope that those who voted 4 years ago to put their hope and their commitment and trust that I would do my best on a daily basis, I hope I lived up to that. So thank you to everyone.
Mr. Earnshaw?
Well, I have 2 matters that are actually board-related before I say goodbye. Sorry.
We expect nothing less.
Regarding the surplus analysis from 2018-19, any update on further details of that and when that might be available?
We reviewed that today. I made changes before we came here and finalized that, and then I'll review it again with Dr. Zerbe based on the changes. And when he's comfortable with the information I have and I met all those changes, then we'll provide it out.
Because for the 7 remaining board members, that's going to be a very important component of the, first, the decision about the Act 1 exceptions, whether you need to take those or not. When you look back at the past 7 years, surpluses have totaled approximately $10 million. This past year, immediate past year was 2.8. The prior was 2.6, and the year before that's 1.1. So there was some discussion at last week's meeting about the Act 1 exceptions and the need for flexibility in voting for those. I would say take a hard look at first, don't make that decision based on a 1-page, very high-level budget assumption and analysis schedule, because there are some very big items that are going to impact the budget next year. You've got the MEA contract, you've got these embedded budget surpluses. They've got to be continued to be whittled out of the budget so that the tax increase is just the minimum amount it needs to be. There's been discussion about possible staffing reductions, especially at the high school. Keep in mind that a 10-position reduction could be worth $1 million when you add in pension, FICA, other benefit costs. So as you move towards voting on whether or not to take Act 1 exceptions, get as much detail as possible. You got to challenge those surpluses and the reasons why they arose. If it's one-time items, that's different, but if it's embedded items, whether it's, excess staff costs or so forth, they should be squeezed out of the budget wherever possible. And with that said, it's been my pleasure to serve on this board for the past 2 years. I've enjoyed working with all of you. I enjoyed all the input from everyone with a diverse background on this board. I think that's very helpful from the standpoint of the board. Input from the public has been tremendous. That's helped me in making my decisions and asking questions. And I've enjoyed my 2 years, and I wish the remaining board members and the 2 new ones coming on all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Earnshaw. Anyone else with old business? Ms. Drummond.
I have 2 things. One, my first thing is I just want to say that I had the pleasure to serve as a stakeholder for the Career Advisory Council meeting last week that was coordinated by Judy Schmitz. And she brings in all sorts of stakeholders from community leaders, business owners, students, teachers, administration. And it's a really great meeting. And we talked about the career-ready accomplishments that have already been made, and we talked about future opportunities in this area, and that was great. And my second thing is just to also thank Mr. Earnshaw and Mr. Ryan for their service to the board. Thank you. Great. Anyone else with old business? Okay, I have something at this point. Mr. Earnshaw, last week you had asked about a status or an update for the entire board on the Audubon property and where we were at. I believe it was you, Mr. Earnshaw, and Mr. Ryan. I know you had said you wanted to put this out to the public, but I think Mr. Earnshaw also wanted some information about the conversations with the township and where we are. So I don't want to get into too many details because we don't have a formal agreement with Lower Providence Township, and at this point I think it would be premature to start getting into the nitty-gritty of that. But what we did discuss with Lower Providence, Mr. Navarrete and I met with them, was that their use of the Audubon property would allow them to expand some of specifically their Parks and Recs programs. So they are very limited in their space in their current building with the township, and with the traffic situation of Audubon. I know people had talked over the years about locating the police there or other business there, that it just wasn't really feasible. But being able to utilize that space for parks and recreation activities would be something that they could do. And I know one program in particular that is very popular is their camp program that they offer. They have a camp program that is a tremendous value to the community. It sells out almost instantaneously every year. By being able to further develop their Parks and Rec programming, they would then be able to expand the program to also be held at other locations, such as at the Worcester Elementary School, and expand the offerings of those programs so that Worcester residents could enjoy the same amenities, basically, that are offered to Lower Providence residents. I know that the location of that building makes it seem like it wouldn't be ideal, but it wouldn't necessarily just be programs that are offered at that building. So giving them more space allows them to expand what they can offer, which then could benefit all residents in Methacton. We had talked about the possibility of it being a long-term lease. My personal feeling is that we are not in a place where we can say definitively that we will not need that land or that building. We have far too many question marks in terms of our future enrollment projections. We have new housing being built as we speak in Worcester. We have new developments being proposed almost on a monthly basis, it seems, whether it be 5 houses, 10 houses, or whatever number of houses they're proposing putting in at the Fatlands estate right now on Paulings Road. Any new housing development that goes in will translate into more students, whether it's 1, whether it's 10, whether it's 100, remains to be seen. So I think that our next steps in this process before we move on to what Mr. Ryan had proposed, which is to kind of put out a call to our community to see who is interested in the use of this space, is that we as a board, I think, need to develop what the parameters are. So is this a space that we can comfortably say we will not need in the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? That will shape, in my mind, how we move forward in offering the space up to someone. If someone comes forward and says, hey, I have this great program that I'd love to be able to offer at Audubon, but I would need to know I can use the space for the next 30 years. We as a board may not be able to do that because we may say, you know what, we're going to need that again in maybe 10 to 15 years. Likewise, if somebody comes forward and says that they have a plan to use it for 5 years, that may not fly for us because, again, we don't know when we might need the building again. So I think our next steps as a board is to revisit our enrollment projections once again. And I think that we need to determine as a board what the time frame would be for any use of that property, when we think we might be able to use it, or when we think we may need to look at using it again. What are we comfortable with? What can we live with? I think we have agreed as a board that selling the property is not in anyone's best interest. So if we're going to look into leasing it, we need to figure out what are the terms that we as a board can live with before we start looking at potential partners. So I hope that that addresses some of your concerns and questions. I'm sure that it probably doesn't address everything that you had in mind, but I just wanted to give you at least that. With that said, does anyone else have anything for old business? New business? Going once, going twice. Okay, courtesy of the floor. Ms. Bickelman.
Okay, Karen Bickelman, Audubon, and I drive school bus for First Student. Please forgive me for my appearance. I was out of work today. I had surgery and I did not plan on coming tonight. I wanted to rest at home, but some of my coworkers called me this evening, and I found out that there was another new underhanded move happening in the transportation building. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention, and there's several other things I'd like to enlighten you as my experience as a bus driver. I've worked here for 36 years, 26 of which I've been driving a school bus. Prior to that, I worked for the adult evening school. I used to teach in the I taught water aerobics classes. I taught swimming lessons. So that's just a little bit of insight on how long I've been here and what I do. I truly enjoy my job as a bus driver. I take pride in what I do. I'm conscientious and courteous to everybody I come in contact with, principals, teachers, and so forth. But after finding out the move with the parking, back when we came out to talk about that, was very disheartening. I feel like I'm treated and my coworkers like we're second-class citizens. Today I find out they removed the lunch and waiting area for the drivers. Okay? There are a lot of drivers that come a distance to come to work. We're the first employees there to transport the students to and from school safely. And like myself, I think we all take pride in doing that as a job. So now they're removing a lunch area where people that come from a distance, you know, have a short amount of time. We sit there and wait for our next route to start and have our lunch. The area is not big enough to begin with, but now I was told there was a wall installed where we eat lunch to make room for, okay, I understand Karen Mossop's coming down there, and I welcome her. I think she'll do a good job, and hopefully she will bring order and accuracy to sports trips getting coordinated and a lot of other things that are last minute, or it seems like it's flying by the seat of your pants. So I welcome her there to do a good job in making room for her. They're moving offices around. So in that, they took away the lunch area and waiting area for the drivers. I really don't think that's right or fair. Maybe we could come up and use the administration lunchroom, for our time that we need to wait before we need to go out on our routes. Okay, that's just in my opinion. I don't think it was discussed anywhere in a property. It's your property down there, but I don't think that was discussed on arrangements like that, just like the parking situation. Now, while I'm talking about the parking, I want to thank you for getting our parking back, but in the meantime now you have, and I'm going to tell you about a couple situations that in my opinion, happened to me personally. I just want to bring it to your attention my way. Now the students are parking up there, all right? The students come walking down the drive where the buses come, and this happened to me several weeks after that took place. I'm coming back from doing my Worcester kindergarten route. I turned on the drive to go down to the transportation building with the bus, and there are blind spots in there, and you rock and roll and you check the area, but as soon as I turned to go down the drive right there at the administration building, there were 3 students walking up the drive, very unsafe. So if you think about that, you're having students park over in that church, which again, is probably a liability, unsafe for them. There's nobody crossing those students that have to cross from leaving their car there to the high school. During dismissal time in the afternoon, you have a horrendous traffic problem there. You have parents picking up on the side of the road, blocking the buses.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Bickelman, I do have to ask that you wrap it up.
Are you kidding me? All right, okay, that's one thing. As far as the building down there with our lunchroom, maybe Worcester Township needs to come down and check out for building code violations. The other thing I wanted to discuss was the behavior of students on the buses with trips. Friday, my school was closed. I did a Methacton 3-tiered run, one of which was at Arcola. I just want to tell you, I pulled up, I was appalled to see the behavior of the students outside the school. I pulled up with the bus, they were like running towards the bus. If one of them would have tripped, I would have hit one of them. There is no adult supervision by a teacher out there when I pulled the bus up, so that needs to be maybe discussed in a meeting. I don't know who's responsible for bus duty. The other thing, discipline on the buses. You have drivers, that they're monitoring the safety of driving the bus to and from school, and then you have kids putting ketchup on the bus. The students get written up and nothing's done to the student. Okay, and I asked before when we were up here talking about the parking situation about the traffic study. The parking, the way it goes, the traffic pattern is horrendous. Last year I did a VOTEC run, and I'd be sitting up there and I'm pulling out with the bus and I have 2 cars coming at me the opposite direction. It's horrible. So I don't know if you can do anything about that or move that along or see what's going to happen. And there was a lot more I could have said, but I understand I'm over my 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mrs. Bickelman.
And Mr. Earnshaw and Mike Ryan, you'll greatly be missed. You were a great asset to the school board.
Anyone else for courtesy of the floor? Mr. Bickelman.
Just a minute. Let me start that. Joe Bickelman, Audubon. Yeah, I wasn't going to come to the meeting tonight either. I was supposed to take care of her. She's not supposed to be alone for 24 hours. I'm still upset that the board is allowing a derogatory comment on the district's website by an anonymous individual. It refers to Dr. Malik, OBGYN, medical doctor. It refers to MIT grad John Andrews, and myself, a 35-year public school business official. The comment refers to us 3 as stooges, and the board is allowing that to be on the district's website. Maybe you should pay attention to the Skyview students and the letters you held tonight, okay? You're allowing an anonymous comment referred to 3 people that come out here and do research and questions and comments. The high school student representatives probably appreciate the other side of the coin, the other opinion from the taxpayers. But this derogatory comment is still left on by the board, okay? And these people are not stooges. Okay, the other thing I have is the $45,000 for the renegotiated contract for routing. Is it going back up to $60,000 next year? Because it was $45,000 this year because Ms. Mossop got $5,000 for 3 months, which lowered the $60,000 to $45,000 for this year. So I'd like to know if it's going back to $60,000. Okay, the enrollment report, the November 1st district enrollment report is a total of 4,742 students. I looked back at the feasibility study of 2005-06, and the projection to build Skyview was a 6,500 student projection that we should have this year. That's a difference of 1,758 less kids. It just goes to show you that you can make a projection and get what you want, even though the projection is a lie. On 11/1/19 Enrollment Report, there are 767 students in Arcola, 767, 7th and 8th grade. In 2005's feasibility study, the district capacity for Arcola was 1,442 students. So there are 675 less students here. Dr. Zerbe says we can't fit 6th grade into Arcola. I understand the one corridor that was used for Skyview was eliminated from Arcola, but it's in close proximity, to use Skyview, which has a lot of capacity too compared to the enrollment. So that's 675 less students in Arcola compared to that capacity, district capacity report in 5-6 that they used to build Skyview. I think you should move 6th grade to Arcola, close Arrowhead, use a K-5 configuration for the remaining schools. Mr. Andrews has a lot of research on the K-5 configuration and how it kicks out quality education. If doing this, you'll save $35 million to build a new Arrowhead, $11 million on the interest, and $1 million every year in operational expenses if you close Arrowhead. So you need to address that problem. My wife lost her lunchroom. They built a wall because they were going to put the head mechanic in that office. They're thinking of putting a shelf right outside the bathroom doors so the drivers can eat their lunch on that shelf. That's what's going on down there. 6 drivers called her tonight, all apologizing because they know what she went through this morning at Will's Eye. But they all gave her the down low on what's going on down there. You have a first student employee that was let go, that was hired by the district, that's going to be working side by side of the person that let her go.
I have to ask you to wrap it up.
How's that going to work?
Thank you, Mr. Bickelman.
You understand that?
Thank you, Mr. Bickelman.
You have somebody that was let go by first student, district employee, side by side of the head person in the depot for first student. Guess you have to have an eye patch to talk longer.
Jim Alec, Worcester. See, that didn't hurt giving Mrs. Bickelman an extra 2 minutes. That was, in my opinion, very good judgment on your part. I think that was a good thing you did. See, you have the latitude to do that, so I'm glad you realized that you could actually let people talk longer than 4 minutes. In a recent submission to the Office of Open Records, Mr. Summers stated that the board is limiting its email communications because of the right-to-know requests that are being filed in this district. Is that true? Are you guys limiting your email communications because you're afraid of the right-to-know process? Or is Mr. Summers making it up? Anybody want to tell me? Even more reason why we have a problem with your right-to-know process. I asked for records about you and Ralph meeting about Audubon. They don't exist. How can you guys be having meetings and there's no record of it? I don't understand how things work here. Only one way to find out, and that's to just do appeals and get affidavits. I mean, that's the only way you get the truth. Mr. Bickelman talked about, he summed up the Arrowhead situation perfectly. Perfectly. You guys just want to ignore the data, ignore the facts. I've been trying to get classroom information from Dr. Zerbe for months. Can't get it. can't tell me how many classrooms there are in a building. Now, why would that be? Doesn't make any sense to me. Won't tell me how many classrooms there are in a building. Denies my request. Makes me think that maybe Mr. Bickelman's on to something. Maybe something's going on. So when you guys can figure out and get us just a basic classroom count, we'd appreciate it. With regards to the budget surplus that Mr. Earnshaw talked about, what is this, 4 years now for budget surpluses? And now you're talking about taking it possibly to the index? I don't know whether you're following the Lower Merion litigation situation, but the Lower Merion people got sued by 3 activists because they were taking the budgets above the index. So I would suggest maybe you Google Lower Merion lawsuit and take a good look at that when you think about raising it above the index. Now, regarding Eagleville and Methacton exterior projects, I've been at the property committee meetings. I've been at these meetings. And somebody talked about dropping the ball. Well, you guys are in charge here. All you guys up front are in charge. You guys dropped the ball. We sat around and watched at the last property committee meeting how it was being rushed to get put on the agenda for this meeting. What's the rush? I don't understand what the rush was. Half you guys didn't understand what the metal pieces that were going to be put on the building. But you bring it forward, and now everybody's saying they dropped the ball. Well, you guys dropped the ball. I'm assuming you're in charge, or maybe it's the property committee, or maybe it's Mr. Navarrete. Somebody's got to step up and take responsibility. You can't blame your consultant, who's excellent. That lady knows what she's talking about, very intelligent, very smart. Even she had concerns about the timeline. So you guys have to get your act together. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Malik. Anyone else? Mr. Andrews.
John Andrews, Lower Providence. I'm told by someone with knowledge that with reference to number 8 survey comment about us 3 stooges, that the person who made the comment likely was referring to someone else who was let go as a business manager at another school district, and not one of the 3 people that come to your meetings. On Friday, I emailed to our school directors and some of the members of the administration 3 documents relative to the Arrowhead Forward project. One of them refers to revisions of option C. One of them refers to grade structure and high school rank. And one of them is an overview on the subject of what road to take, the good road or the bad road. And 3 of the directors saw my request to acknowledge receipt of the documents. The other people, I don't know. And one of them also wished me happy Thanksgiving. Relative to what grades we should have in different buildings, that is an important subject. One of the schools in the U.S. News and World Report rankings was Renaissance Academy in Phoenixville. It got a rank way above our district. Our district in this year's ranking came in at 59th, whereas it came in at 11th. It came in at 11th when we had a K-5 and 6-8 program. And the changeover fits with the extreme drop in our ranking. And going back to K-5 and 6-8 was option C in Dr. Zerbe's January presentation, which had erroneous functional capacities and overall treated that possibility in a cursory manner. Well, if you're happy with being 59th when we used to be number 11, and I think those rankings are thorough and accurate across many schools in this Commonwealth, I called for an independent analysis of option C, and I hear silence. Sticking with K-4, 5-6, and 7-8 is far from the commonest grade structure across the United States, across the Commonwealth, across the county. And I don't think that was considered. And in January, we didn't know of the upcoming ranking of 59th. So I absolutely think that this school board or the
Thank you, Mr. Enders.
should consider that rather than spend $1 million or so designing another school that does nothing to improve our ranking.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Anyone else for courtesy of the floor? Any final comments from our board before we adjourn? I do have just one thing that I want to clarify. So we do get a lot of information and feedback and input from our community, and I know I do certainly appreciate and applaud the commitment of several individuals who are doing the research and providing us with information. But I do want to clarify that when we are given information, whether it be from the administration, from the community, from the public, and we don't change course and we don't change action, at least for me, I need it to be clear that it's not due to a lack of understanding, it's not due to a lack of appreciation for the information. It's just that I disagree. And I think we can agree to disagree on this. And it's not something that I'm changing my mind about, not changing course on. I don't agree with the correlations that are being drawn, and that's just all there is to it.
I'd just like to wish everyone in the Methacton community, and especially the school board, a happy Thanksgiving.
Right, and I will take a motion to adjourn from Mr. Earnshaw and a second from Mr. Ryan, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.